So how's it going, everybody? We're going to talk about the assignment 1, which is understanding value. And I wanted to spend just a little bit of time introducing the subject of today. So basically, value is one of the elements and principles of design that is very much important when we talk about painting. Because value is the lightness or darkness of something. And in drawing, we talk about lightness and darkness as defining light and shadow. Now, in painting, it is one of the dimensions of color that we have to think about, because hue or color can, one, be Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But with all of those intense hues, you have value, meaning the lightness or darkness of that value. Now, intensity is something else we're going to talk about later, but hue, intensity, and value are those three dimensions of value, or of color, that we're going to talk about today. And today's assignment is focusing only on value. So light and dark. So today's mixing assignment is going to be purely on whether or not you can create grays. Okay, so I want you to take a look at this real quick. Okay, so here is what your drawing should look like once you get it all drawn out. Now, I've gone ahead, and this is all in Blackboard. I've gone ahead and give you the dimensions of what it is that it's supposed to be. Now, my demonstration is going to be a little bit different today, and I'm going to do my best to try to do all of it for you, but I'm probably only going to do the top row and the bottom row just for time purposes. I'm trying to limit this video to 15 minutes. So ultimately, your goal is to do a step value, 11 step value at the top, a gradation on the bottom row, that's the bottom, and then a series of studies of gradations in the middle row, meaning that in this area, right in here, this is a gradation of a 2 by 2 inch square right here. And then all of these are 2 by 2 inch, but this would be more of a spherical setup, a cylindrical setup, and then a cone or type of setup from the top. Or it looks like kind of like a diamond or pyramid type setup. But all of which, on this one, you're basically light to dark from the bottom and the top. On this one, you are light from the middle and darkening your values as it goes out. This one, you are light in the center and getting dark on the outside. And then, of course, on the last one, you're actually starting at the 12 o'clock from light. And as if you can imagine a clock hand, it's almost like taking a sheet and pushing your finger up underneath it, and the light's coming through. But it kind of rotates like a clock hand from light to dark. So all of which are going to be able to help you understand value. So I'm going to switch over to my palette and my easel here, and I'm going to draw it out for you and kind of run you through it, and then I'm going to speed it up just so you can see how it looks at the end. So I'm going to try to keep this under 15 minutes for you guys, but let's get going. So let's talk about your canvas. Now, you can kind of see my sketch there. I have the top, my canvas is a little bit smaller, but you need 11 steps at the top, which I've given you dimensions. You need to always think about measuring twice, drawing once. And when you draw it out, it should be a light drawing. You don't want to be heavy-handed when you draw this thing out, because you don't want your drawing lines to show up in your painting later. Remember, this is a painting class, not a drawing class, so you don't want your actual drawing lines to be apparent in the final product. So keeping things clean, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for your dexterity, how you can control the brush and keep things clean. I'm looking for value mixes and how well your step values go from dark to light, meaning that you're not going to make abrupt jumps, or 2 steps are going to look the same, or 3 steps, and so on and so forth. And we're going to talk about mixing here in a little bit, but it's also almost like a design, because I want you to pay attention to instruction, which is like the dimensions that I gave you in that document that I showed you earlier. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention to that document that I gave you in Blackboard, and you're paying attention, and measure twice, draw once. So for this particular portion of mixing paint, we're only going to use a couple of colors, black and white. Now, I mixed up a couple of colors with titanium white and chromatic black, and I didn't really like the way it came out. It was just a little bit too blue. So I ended up switching my colors, but the concept is still the same. thing. And that's, and I showed you some liquid right there. We also have some liquid because you're going to be mixing that after you get it all said and done. So what you're going to be doing is mixing up your paints. So you want to get out a little bit of titanium white and a little bit of your black out. Now, it doesn't matter what your color scheme is. Mine, the only reason why I switched blacks, and you're going to see that here in a little bit, is because it just looked a little bit too blue on screen. But you want to take a little bit of the white, and you want to take a little bit of the black. Now, black is always going to be stronger, so you want to have more of the white and less of the black. And you can see that I'm continually slowly adding more and more black just till I get a 50% gray. And then, of course, you want to have a good glob of the 50% gray because you're then going to mix those two together with that 50% gray with the white, and you can see that here. So you can get a step in between the white and the 50% gray. And then, of course, you'll do that in the opposite end of the spectrum with the 50% gray and the black. So now we went from 2 colors to 3 to 5, and it happens exponentially. So, and you kind of see where I'm going with this. So there's 5 colors, and then, I'm going to take some black, and I'm going to mix a little bit of that secondary 60% gray, and then I'm going to take some white, and I'm going to mix that 30% right there with the gray. And you can kind of see where I'm going with this. So it's basically just mixing things together. Now, this is only one way of doing this. Now, you don't have to do that. You don't have to approach it this way. You absolutely can approach it in a sense that you just start with white and slowly start adding black. The trouble with doing that is that you don't have an end result to see once you get all of it said and done. Because what happens is you start with white, you slowly start adding black, and you may not end up at black. So you have to be very careful with your mixtures so that you can end up with black. Now, this is where I switched over. This is where I switched over. And I said, that's too much. So I actually switched over to a bone black, which looks much more neutral on screen. And you can see that. And I did the same thing, okay, except instead of starting with white on the left, I did black. And I mixed them all together, and I got a 50% gray. And now I've got 9 values. I'm going to shift my camera here in a little bit just so you can see that. So you can see my switch, and it's a much better neutral gray. Now, it doesn't matter what colors you guys use or whatever was in your kit. It ain't going to matter. I just did this for recording purposes. But regardless, you're going to have to mix some liquid into each one of those globules of paint. And for this particular size that I have here, and those are only about maybe 5 to 6 peas, like little green peas, 5 or 6 globules of peas worth of paint, I'm only going to add like 2 or 3 drops to it. It doesn't take much, but let's go ahead and switch over to the painting aspect of it. Now, I'm only going to use 2 brushes, and there's a small square there and a very medium. I think it's like a 6 and a 2, and you can see the comparison there. So I'm going to you can see that I'm just going to start off with black, and this is kind of a mistake. I shouldn't have done this because I realized very quickly that I haven't done a value scale in a while, but the reason why I shouldn't have done this is because you're going to have to clean your brush if you start with black for every single color, because you don't want to keep adding dark value to every color. So what would have been smart would have been to start with white, because then you just have to simply wipe your brush out and shift over to the next color. So while I'm talking about mixing, cleaning your brushes, there's my solvent brush right there. And I'm going to go into normal speed here for a little bit maybe. And I'm going to clean my brush out because I shouldn't have gone into black. And, mine looks a little bit different than yours, but that silicoil that I had you guys get, the thing is, you could see my solvent down there, and it's actually quite deep. It's actually like 2 to 3 inches deep. And you can't really see that from this angle, but it is solvent. And I'm going to clean my brushes. I'm going to clean my brushes right now. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to grab my brush, and I'm going to clean it out, okay? I started with black, and the reason why I'm going to clean it out is because you don't really want to start with black. You want to start from white and go light to dark, especially in this exercise, because you're going to have to clean your brush between every single shift of value so that the next preceding value doesn't get darker. So I'm going to clean my brush here, and this is how you clean them. Now, you clean it, And you want to make sure you get all the paint out. And I'm using an old T-shirt. You can't really see that there, but I'm going to show you a better shot here of it. So I cleaned it all out of with the solvent, and then I'm just taking my T-shirt and kind of folding it back and forth and getting all the paint out so that you can actually get all of the pigment out before you switch on to the next color. And that's kind of the reason why I stopped and cleaned my brush, was so that I could switch back over to white, and that's exactly what I'm going to do now. So after you get all of your pigment out, and you can see me kind of working it back and forth in the jar, wiggling it around, getting it out. And if my T-shirt's blue here, if your rag's white, you can really, really see when the color shift, when you get all the pigment out, because it's going to leave a residual color back. But there's a good clean brush right there, and I know it's kind of hard it's not in focus, but you absolutely can see that it's clean. So we're going to shift back over to the easel, and I'm going to speed it up, and because you really don't need to see this. It's the same thing over and over again. I'm just going through my values, and I'm just going from light to dark now, because I did the black, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And now we're shifting back over to white to dark. So I'm just working down the value steps, and here in a second you're going to see me shift. It's going to jump kind of into the future a little bit, but I'm just working the value steps because I've already done all the hard work of working on my palette. My steps are there, and you can see that I just kind of showed you that my values are there. And essentially, I'm just working those values, the same values that I have on the top. I'm just working them from right to left, from light to dark, and I'm just blending the value changes together. And most people like to use a filbert and kind of blend these two back and forth. But there's no right or wrong way of doing this. You can kind of use a fan and kind of squiggle it back and forth, and then come back and blend it. You can use a filbert, kind of like what I'm doing here in the video. I mean, there's no wrong way of doing it, but the main point is that we're not looking for perfection. It's about progression. So when I see a problem, I adjust it. It's not about perfection. I just kind of go with it, and whatever I need to do, I just do it. There's no right or wrong way of blending these things together. So whatever works for you. And as you go through the gradation of value, you will find that it's all right to leave brush strokes, because as you step back, everything kind of blurs together anyway. So it really doesn't matter. Now, this is not a work of art in itself. It's just an exercise. So don't try to be perfect. You can see that I seriously messed up there and added way too much white into my valuing. You can see it shift, but I'm just gonna keep working it. So it's all right to make mistakes because you learn from them. And I completely abandoned the whole, let's keep it perfectly gradated. And, because I'm not expecting you guys to be Photoshop and make a perfect gradation of color. That's not what I'm out to get. The purpose of this exercise is to just blend. Now, the 2x2s in the middle row are going to be a little bit more difficult, but I'm going to show you where I end up at the end of this video, and here in just a couple of seconds. And this by no means is the final product. It's just the last little bit.